Greetings, my name is Ryan Nix. I'm a solutions architect with Amazon Web Services, and we're going to have a fairly diverse discussion. So joining me here today is Nick. Nick, say hi.
Hi everybody, my name is Nicholas Lohman. I'm a partner solutions architect at Amazon Web Services.
And then joining us from Red Hat is Rick. No confusion.
Hello, I'm Rick or Ricardo, and I'm a technical marketing manager at Red Hat.
So why we've got all of us here is I have a collection of customers that are going through an interesting journey in their business. They're trying to solve many different things, and I'd like to get your two opinions on some of these processes. Let's set the background here. My customer is a SAP consumer, so they have an existing SAP environment. Ricardo, you're joining us from an SAP perspective.
Yes.
These guys are heavily invested here on top of SLES as the underlying operating system.
So Linux.
This is the entire SAP platform, so it's the application workloads, it's
the database, also
the HANA
running the HANA
database.
Okay.
And they're not just running one of these, there is production, there's non-prod, there are different geographic implementations.
So basically their whole SAP estate is running on SLES.
Correct. That said, they have other investments all over the show. So Nick, from a perspective here, we do have some older CentOS sort of environments. They've got a couple of smaller server-based application workloads running on CentOS, and CentOS is now being decommissioned out of their environment, and they're exploring some options there. The customer is going through an existing modernization practice. So one of the things that they're bringing into the house is OpenShift, which sees Red Hat Enterprise Linux or Core OS if you're looking at the newer versions under the hood. And then of course they've got some other operating systems as well. And the feedback I'm getting from my customer is there's just simply too many operating systems here. You can see the curveball here. I mean, just from a maintenance of OSs, there are some infrastructure challenges here. I need to cater for how do I manage each of these OSs. Nick, what are you seeing as recommendations? What are paths that we could do in terms of consolidation or reducing some of the effort here?
So I agree with you. You know, everybody say, people say that Linux is Linux, but there's differences between those. I mean, if you want to accomplish a task with networking, for example, on CentOS versus SLES, command syntax is going to be different. Packages are installed slightly different, and being able to keep your staff up to date and educated on which system, and even for the staff to be able to work on different machines to be straight about what system they're working on. They're like, oh, this is on another system. I've got to do things differently today. So to be able to, anything you can do to simplify that and standardize on a single system or single platform, it allows for consistency both in management and in day-to-day operations. I mean, for example, if there's a CVE package, you know that it's going to be the same CVE package across a platform if you're standardizing on a certain distribution or release.
What about licensing, subscription, support models? And I look at it from two perspectives. How do I use the software from a licensing and support model perspective, and how do I get help from a support perspective? Are those factors as well?
Absolutely. So CentOS is a community enterprise OS, so it's going to be providing you with community support. If you want enterprise level support, you're going to have to move to a different operating system. And SUSE is going to be a different support model, so you're going to need to contact support through SUSE or through AWS, depending on who how you're purchasing your support from.
What are our options in terms of changing OS? And I want to get to the SAP stuff first, because I think that is a very, very big part of the business. can my customer entertain a different option potentially? I know my customer is currently exploring how can they decouple some of the custom code artifacts in SAP, and they're running those on OpenShift. But what are the other options for the SAP environment in a more general sense? Rick, have we got a solution?
Well, yes, so considering that they're running on SAP HANA, and in general, any customer by 2027 will have to have SAP HANA. And HANA runs only on Linux, on 2 distributions of Linux. So your customer at the moment is on SLES. The option would be to move to RHEL and to standardize then everything on RHEL if they're doing that. What can we do with this?
So what you're saying is take the SAP environment, primarily the HANA focus, and change the underlying operating system to
RHEL.
To RHEL. First question I would get is, does that actually make sense for me? I think it depends on the density of RHEL in the business. The fact that they're going into a modernization and they're investing heavily here, maybe that makes sense.
Because you mentioned they want to use OpenShift, so that makes sense. They're going to be using RHEL for OpenShift, or as you said, CoreOS. That makes sense. Not only that, I mean, if they want to have a complete platform for their SAP workloads, if we're talking about SAP, a platform that can be managed with a high degree of automation, you can use some tools like smart management to control the whole life cycle of these hosts. You can also use some of the tools like Insights to make sure that all your hosts are compliant with with Red Hat and SAP recommendations. Then that's a
now, smart management, is that part of a broader Red Hat automation package, or is that a
It comes with RHEL. It comes with your RHEL subscriptions. You will have access to smart management. Smart management, you will have a dedicated node for that, where it runs, and your RHEL host will be connected to that, and it will manage so that node where smart management.
So it's a management layer similar to what I had with Satellite as a patch management solution?
It's the new, it's been rebranded Satellite to Smart Management. So yeah, it's basically the concept is the same. Satellite is what is going to be doing patches, applying security fixes, all that. We call it now Smart Management, but yes.
But I've got 20 years of experience around SAP on SLES.
Right.
Does that not result in a bump in the road? How difficult is it to do this? I'm assuming we're standing up a new cluster. We could probably have to reinstall and reconfigure all of this. So what can I do to ease that journey?
Well, the good news here is that you have automation, and there's a solution built with Ansible, and you can use Ansible Automation Platform to orchestrate all that. And you will do this migration or this operating system change automatically in a workflow, and really, really easily, because those playbooks are ready to use, be parameterized to adapt to your use case and your features, and you can do it just with, as I said, an automatic workflow. So as you said, Ryan, those playbooks, the first thing that they're going to do, they will build the empty boxes on RHEL, okay? They will parameterize the RHEL operating system, applying all the OSS nodes that are needed to run SAP HANA and the application. So that's all done with automation.
This could be infrastructure as code, or it could be Ansible.
Yes.
To begin with.
So in the case of Ansible, we would use Ansible playbooks and workflow to deploy this infrastructure, deploy a RHEL system, and then it would go through all of the workflow and best practices that would be implemented for standing up a RHEL for SAP infrastructure.
You could also come back to your security and your hardening practices here as well.
Yeah, if we wanted to add, like, say, CIS hardening, we could include that in the workflow here in Ansible Automation Platform. That's going to apply that to these systems, so that whenever we do the migration, these are going to be on hardened systems that are going to meet the CIS. Awesome.
Are the SAP and HANA configuration packages provided by Red Hat and Ansible, are they significantly different from SAP and HANA on SLES versus RHEL? Or is it the same playbook, and the only thing that's really different is the OS specific playbooks?
That's correct. The only thing that's specific are the OS playbooks. So because you need to apply recommendations for your operating system that might be different in SLES than for RHEL in order to run SAP HANA. So the actual playbooks are different at OS level. Yeah.
Does the custom code being decoupled change this in any way?
No.
Does it simplify it?
I mean, if you have done it, it will be much better because you will have extracted all this custom code from the database, so your database will be much smaller.
So it impacts the time to transfer the data from the old environment to the new.
That's completely correct. So yeah, going back to the process, once you have created your boxes here with your HANA, with your application, SAP application, they're empty. What you would do, or the workflow will do with another role, is to establish HANA system replication so that this HANA that's running currently on SLES,
which is potentially already in play over here, but now we're just going to go and establish replication.
Actually, the replication occurs at the database level. That's where we're going to do it. Yeah.
Sorry, from the HANA perspective, and it's going to go behind that text.
But just definitely, as you said, Ryan, most likely in production environments, the customer will have two SLES boxes.
Good.
Replicating the data in the HANA.
Either for regionalization or for some sort of DR recovery strategy. I want to shift focus away from SAP for a second. So with the CentOS environment, I'm assuming we can follow a similar process here. We can consolidate those OSs into RHEL as well, but what does that look like?
So with Red Hat, there is a tool that's called a convert to RHEL, which is a package that can be downloaded from Red Hat, and we can put it into install it on the CentOS systems. So it's actually going to convert these systems in place. And I would show that they're moving over, but they're really going to be, we're going to do this all in place, and we can convert all of these to RHEL. And whenever this is a supported workflow, we can integrate it with Ansible so that you show that we have multiples of CentOS systems here. So instead of logging into each of these individually, we're going to use a playbook here in AAP, and it's going to go and log into these systems and install the Convert to RHEL package on these systems and run that Convert to RHEL workflow on these systems. So in essence, this package will run and the systems will reboot, and whenever they come back up, they will be RHEL systems that we can then use our smart management to subscribe to and attach a subscription to those, so they're downloading updates, and they'll become an updated updated CentOS system. If they're currently a CentOS 7 system, we'll get a RHEL 7 system out of them. If it's a RHEL 8 system, we'll get a RHEL, or if it's a CentOS 8 system, we'll get a RHEL 8 system out of it. So in that regards, once these playbooks are all executed, we're going to come out with instead of having SLES and CentOS systems over here, we're going to have all RHEL systems. So we're managing the same operating system. We're able to apply the same CIS hardening to all of these systems. We're able to utilize Red Hat Insights that's going to go and analyze our systems, see what they're doing, and it's going to use the configuration data and run it through a machine learning algorithm that's going to give us information back to say, hey, you know, you could probably, this system's accomplishing this task. If you change this packet size and network configuration, you can get better performance out of your systems.
That insight also goes a step further. It becomes an input into the modernization practice, and we can identify, am I running things on servers or on virtual machines that potentially could become future microservices and become a much more lean process. This conversion in place is actually very exciting. You know, on an AWS, I think it's less shiny because we would spin up an EC2 instance, transfer the data, and I could easily discard the old one. But if I was on premises, I'd have the boundaries of what my virtualization stack has, my existing hardware investment. It becomes much more attractive to be able to do that in-place conversion.
You know, you bring up a really good point. With Ansible Automation Platform, it doesn't really matter if this system is, you have two of these CentOS systems on-prem and one of these is in AWS, because Ansible Automation Platform can apply to systems that are on-prem or in the cloud.
Now, RHEL for HANA, coming back to that very briefly, I'm assuming that stacks on top of RHEL for HA. Is that an underlying building block?
Well, you have RHEL for SAP Solutions, which is a subscription that gives you access to the system roles to configure the operating system, and that gives you access as well to the high availability add-on, which is based on pacemaker.
So this is not a case of the customer needs to create a uniquely sculpted, highly available solution. No. It's very much a templated
standard,
process.
definitely. Yes.
One other thing to mention is that this is RHEL here, this is RHEL here, and this is going to be RHEL down here. This is the same RHEL. Now, if we wanted to add HA to these systems, we could do that. RHEL for SAP includes the high availability add-on, which means that it has access to a repository with the HA services and packages. RHEL for SAP also includes SAP specific packages that are designed to and optimized for SAP workloads on RHEL.
Okay, so just in summary, very quickly, at the end of this journey, we end up with much of our investment on a standardized operating system, so standardized support, not necessarily reduced cost unless we're looking at the cost of other licensing and subscriptions and things, but I've got one support channel. I've got a standardization in skill set, standardization in approach of automation, and this then becomes easier for the business to move forward. Is that a fair description?
That's correct, and there's one other thing that I'm going to add in here, and that is RHLS. That's the Red Hat Learning subscription. Red Hat has an extensive educational offering, which is online learning environment. In this instance over here, if you have a new employee that comes online, you have a mixture of systems with CentOS, where they have to learn CentOS or Enrun SLES. With RHLS, you have a validated, absolutely superb educational offering that they can utilize on demand in the office, at home. Not only that, the on-demand video offerings lead to a certification offering where they can take exams remotely. And these remote exams can be scheduled, and they don't have to go to a special testing center. They can do it from their home or from their office whenever they need to, whenever they have time that they can. If they have hey, there's a Friday morning where I can go and do an exam, they can do that, and they can do these classes as they have time. Another benefit to that is, say they're going to go and do a process, like say they have to go and do something with HA, or they need to learn something about HA. You can, by having the Red Hat Learning subscription, have access to education about all of Red Hat services, including OpenShift, RHEL, anything, Ansible automation platform. You can go and you don't have to commit to a time period. You can simply go in and, like, I want to go and watch a 15-minute lecture on this particular item with RHEL HA and refresh my memory on something, or just understand something. So you can go through and get the training certifications, which are great. Another benefit of that is that you're not tying up an employee to train a new employee. You're also allowing an employee to be empowered with a great set of tools.
Well, that's the thing that stood out for me. It's not just about closing the skills gap with this transition. It's also about future career progression. How do I take the talent that I have in the business, how do I retain that talent and grow that talent to be even better in the future? It's where we end up with talent or staff having a glass ceiling, and then they leave my business because they can learn and develop skill sets somewhere else. I think something like that is going to be a very, very empowering draw card. There's a lot here. There's a lot of food for thought. If a customer wanted to start a broader discussion with this, who do they reach out to?
They can reach out to their AWS account team.
Okay. And thank you both. It's as always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
And
thanks, Rick.
Thank you for joining us.